Welcome to Laplink Connections. I'm talking today with Bobb Rapp, who has had an illustrious career at many companies. He was a senior technical executive at Microsoft, IBM, GE, back to Microsoft. They love him there. And now a consultant and architect at Envorso. Hi, Bobb. How are you?
Good, Thomas. How are you doing this morning? It's awfully good to see you.
Yeah, it's a little early, as you can see from my background. The sun has not come up, but with your busy schedule, I'm glad that we could fit this little talk in. I wanted to get a little bit your perspective on some of the, cloud issues that you are tackling every day. And given your long history in building the cloud at Microsoft, IBM, and everywhere, do you agree with some voices that the cloud is at max saturation and that the next build out is at the smart edge? Our, old colleague Satya Nadella called for business to build out ubiquitous and smart edge computing, which for me means not only IoT, but also the PC is strong and alive. So what's your view on that?
That's a great question, Thomas. I think what we've maybe learned from the pandemic is that different companies are at different time horizons. So Satya said a few years ago when the pandemic started, he said, it looks like the pandemic has accelerated adoption for many companies by maybe 2, 3, 4 years. So I think I work with all kinds of companies, primarily in the automotive space these days, and some of them are nearly cloud native. If you think about the startups that are, the new EV companies, and some of them are still very much in the hybrid space with workloads on-prem or hybrid. So I think a ubiquitous edge is important. It's also how we're going to get better data to make the world a better place, because edge devices tend to get us faster data cheaper that's more useful if you think about cars and phones and coffee makers and all those other edge devices. But I still think we've got laggards in regulated industries, particularly healthcare, maybe some of the other life critical industries. So there's a lot of upside. And as I look at the growth of the cloud, I think Microsoft last quarter maybe had the biggest quarter, was it $50 billion? The biggest quarter of their entire history. So I think we're not at the end, but maybe the beginning of the middle. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that there's also a little bit of, the old saying, the PC is dead, to the new phrase, oh no, the PC is alive and well, and we actually need it for the cloud.
Yeah.
Most of the computing power today is still at the edge. Yeah, because we're not running our daily business on the cloud. There's a lot of storage in the cloud. There's also a lot of computing in the cloud, no doubt.
That's right.
I don't know, some CEOs were touting a couple of years ago, I'm running my company from the phone.
Yeah.
No, you don't, unless you have your 100 staffers prepare all your data that you only need the 5 data points on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, I spend my life in coffee shops. This is a virtual one. This is my favorite one from London. But throughout the day, as I travel around, and my car is now my office, I actually have 18 screens that I carry with me between PCs, Macs, iPads, phones, all of those kinds of things, and Wacom tablets and other things. So I think, if the PC is dead, I would say long live the PC, because when you walk into a coffee shop, everybody's probably using the cloud, but everybody's sitting in front of a Mac or PC. So
yeah, I like your coffee shop, especially since there's no food available.
And she hasn't turned around in months, so I feel like she's ignoring me. But still, I like the coffee shop. It's a good beer.
So we talk about big data. I mean, that was a key phrase in the last year. It was big data, big data. Have we achieved what we needed to achieve, or do you think we are just at the beginning? I guess some goes for the AI as well, right?
Yeah, I like to ask the question, when was the first time that an airplane could fly itself? And most people think it was a few years ago. Turns out it was actually in the 1920s. And you've been able to have an automobile, truck, airplane do self-driving for many years. But if you think about, would you put a baby in a car and have them go across London by themselves? I think what we've learned about data, whether it's AI, ML, I probably have missed a few buzzwords this morning, but is data should help us in kind of the Jeeves mode to make better decisions. So a project that I did with GE Healthcare, where we diagnosed certain kinds of cancer, what we really did is we used AI to say, look at this X-ray or MRI. It looks like there might be something you missed. Let's circle it and help the human have a better day, make a better diagnosis. I think that's where we're going, because people talk a lot about AI and ML and all the other buzzwords, but mostly it's not very good. Even GPT-2 and 3 of the very best algorithms from the OpenAI Foundation are still generally not built in a way that it helps humans have a better day, do their job better, faster, make better decisions. So the folks that are doing that are, I think, on the right track. And there's great examples of that in the world. In fact, Microsoft has a huge project with an agricultural company to improve how water is used and how fertilizers are used. So reducing water and fertilizer usage by at least 25 or 30% with Land O'Lakes just by using, smart use of data. That, by the way, changes the world. That's really important. But I think we shouldn't worry too much about robo-taxis taking over our jobs anytime soon. That doesn't seem to be very relevant, right? So.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true, and it seems that some of these buzzwords are overused. I mean, if you just had your example, a lot of people, if you buy, a coffee at your coffee shop online, yeah, and you get served up with now 20 ads of coffee shops all around the world, that they call that AI. But basically, it's very easy just to throw up, some selected ads because you did it. Yeah. And if you buy a PC, then they serve up PCs. Well, you just bought one. Yeah. They're not even smart like that. But
yeah. And it turns out that what we sometimes forget is that as we have more data about people, the most important thing is to use it responsibly, right? I love it when I'm on my way to Starbucks and I'm working with some of my students in an apprenticeship program here at the university. And so what they say to me is, hey, Bob, you just played Roy Orbison in your car. And I've asked them to when I play Roy Orbison, I ask them actually to make a certain drink for me at Starbucks. And the Starbucks team is working with Central Washington University, so I can have a Roy Orbison morning. That is really useful because it anticipated my needs. It ordered what I wanted. It asked me permission all the time. It's not invasive. It's actually really wonderful. And so when I walk into Starbucks, I have the experience that I want. That's what we need to do, is to treat people respectfully and make their lives just a little bit better. But we shouldn't invade their lives with stupidity. We've been able to do that for years. So
absolutely. Now, I talked about all your big roles that you had at the big companies, but you recently left your job, your cushy job at Microsoft, and joined a consulting firm of like-minded technologists. What triggered that?
Well, so a very good friend of mine forever, a guy named Todd Warren, who led development in embedded and mobile, reached out and said he's working with a really interesting problem in the automotive space with really smart people doing really cool stuff. Would I like to come meet them? And you know me, I've always been a George Jetson guy. In fact, rumor is he was actually born in 2022. And I've been waiting for my flying car and my robot made and all of that stuff from the Jetsons since I was a little lad. And this company, Envorso, where I'm a partner and a technical fellow, is helping reform how automotive companies become more digital, more software agile, that kind of stuff. So kind of more like Tesla than they are. And I got to say, it's so much fun to create the future with all these really wonderful people who, and Tesla, by the way, has been a good example of kind of a beta test. But imagine if you had really good cars. And that's probably very controversial to say for all those Tesla lovers out there. I'm also a Tesla lover. But automotive companies in the world are really good at making cars. And as they get better at experiences, I would love to be able to get in my car and say, drive me to Starbucks. And by the way, for the next couple hours, I don't want to drive. I want to take this conference call. I want to talk to my friend Thomas Koll, and let the car be piloted remotely or have maybe self-driving work or some combination of both. And I'd like to, by the way, have some. I'd like to have the store deliver food to my trunk while I'm in my car. These are the kinds of things that are easy to do if we just have the right vision. So I got to work with a bunch of visionaries. It's an awful lot of fun, and they're ex-automotive folks and ex-software folks from Microsoft primarily. And man, we have a good time. So.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to have a good time. You're supposed to advance the world. So, as you say, you're working right now with a car company to build the next generation software. So, what do you actually envision? Yeah, it's not just about entertainment. Does it go beyond of what we see today in cars? Because we do have already a lot of technology there.
Yeah, it does. I'll take an example. So my parents, my wife's parents, and my parents, my father unfortunately passed away, but they're all in their 90s. And I never really expected to be taking care of my parents as their kind of supervisor, helper. And none of them should be able to drive. By the way, all of them drive. It's terrifying, right? They're one accident away from a big lawsuit. They shouldn't drive. And so I actually went to Tesla, and they were very nice in Bellevue. And I took a Tesla, and I took it on a trial run. But my parents all live in very rural areas, which is why we're over in Central Washington. And a Tesla is really good if you live in San Francisco, I guess. But it's not very good if you have snow and you're in the middle of nowhere. And so it isn't appropriate for my parents. The scenario I would love my car to keep me safe. I'd love if I've had too much to drink, or if I'm not a very good driver, or if I'm having a stroke. I'd love it when my car realizes that I'm having a stroke, that it takes me to the hospital, Thomas. I mean, that would be terrific. That it's the most personal thing I carry, except maybe my phone. I'm surrounded in my car. Why doesn't it do more things for me that are valuable and appropriate? Just like getting my order right at Starbucks, why doesn't my car do what it should do instead of what I have to tell it how to do? And so, I think the car companies are amazing at cars, and as we help them think about those next scenarios, the other thing I think is it's a huge new chance to help students. And a big part of my life is apprenticeships. Is how do we get students who maybe aren't going to go to college, or maybe didn't even finish high school? How do we get them into trades that can help make the new EV world, the new world of electric and hydrogen and cars better, and a great place to have jobs around the world, not just in cities, but in the countryside where I live. So
yeah. I mean, the whole topic of autonomous cars, of course, is fascinating, because if you look at it today, I think it's really more of a two-dimensional technology. That means, what does the sensor see? On the other side. But it can only react to things it sees or senses, but not the stuff they don't. And so when we think of autonomous cars, and I talked recently with Peter Knuck, our old buddy. And we talked about 5G, and one of the points, of course, is not only speed but also latency.
Right.
So if you don't get the data in time, no matter how fast your own computer is, it will be too late because you got the data. And of course, when you are in a city, I think in the country it's even better with autonomous car, except that you don't have the infrastructure of the internet as much. But in the city, you have a lot of buildings. So if the truck comes around the corner, the sensor will see it when it's too late.
That's right.
And so you need more of a three-dimensional system where there are servers everywhere, that the truck communicates with the server, your car communicates to the server, and the the central computer says there's a truck coming, so why don't you stop it? Stop your car.
And if you think about 5G deployment, I think it was a couple of years ago, I was listening to different executives talking about deployments of 5G. They said every kilometer will need to have a little tiny building with 5G equipment in it, and maybe more than that. That's a lot of density. But if you think about the world changing, think about a connected device like a connected car or vehicle. And by the way, every one of those has at least a PC in it, right? At least a PC, right. Many more processors and circuits, and it's highly connected. And then you look at the disruption of all the low Earth satellite folks, right? So there's 4 or 5 big consortiums, and there will be more than 60,000 satellites in the air. You can get right now at SpaceX has Starlink, and we use Starlink here at our home in addition to other things. In fact, we're talking on it right now. And in the middle of nowhere, I get 250 meg down and 250 meg up for $100 a month. And I live in a place that most people can't find on a map, right? So think about that disruption and how it changes really everywhere that needs connectivity. We now have new scenarios that are even better than 5G scenarios today, right? So
yeah, but if we think about it, and I think that was your early points of when was the first self-driving car, or plane. We had satellites 20 years ago. We had all the ideas, all the things that we talked about planes flying high up in the air all the time, to create connectivity. And that's now 20 years later, and rural areas still don't have the coverage.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
And now it's certainly getting better. And, a guy like Elon Musk is certainly in the middle of driving a lot of these changes. And, a lot of times when I hear, the discussion about his controversial talks, comments, whatever, what we can't forget is that despite the fact that technology has existed for a long time, he actually pushed it over the edge.
That's right.
In many ways, whether it's with Tesla, with SpaceX, with the satellites, he actually creates things that nobody has done before at that scale.
That's right. And I like to say, at least in the auto industry, if Elon Musk and Tesla didn't exist, we'd have to invent him, because he's created such excitement and innovation and dynamic behavior with the industry that we have really hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars being invested in creating this amazing future. And really, Tesla is a key driver for that. So it's
now we only need the breakthrough in electricity creation.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the more data centers, the more PCs, the more electric cars. I'm missing sometimes the debate, where does the electricity come from?
Well, you'll love this. My dear friend Sebastian, I think you actually know Sebastian Justice Schmidt. He was a founder of SPB Software and a good Microsoft partner, but he went off about 7 years ago and built an amazing company called Enapter, which I think I have one share, so I'm an advisor. And they have the best electrolyzer in the world around so they take energy and turn it into hydrogen. And they just won a big award in the UK a couple months ago as the most useful technology to save the planet. Really cool people. And they're putting a mega factory in Germany at, I think, 400 million euros. But if you start thinking about the future of transportation, what you realize is batteries have to be combined with something else to extend range and things like trucks. So you think maybe hydrogen, maybe fuel cells. You also think about solar is great, except at nighttime. So as you start thinking about ecosystems, I love what Enapter and the hydrogen economy is doing to say it's about cogeneration and coexistence and great engineering, which is we're still trying to figure out. But I think he would be a great guy to come chat with you. He's a wonderful human and is really changing the world in thoughtful ways. And he actually lives in Thailand part of the year. His entire complex in Thailand is off the grid. So it's solar, hydrogen, and fuel cells. And it is the whole circle that we want. If I have solar at our house, but of course my solar doesn't work at night, and storage batteries are expensive. So I love to see. It's a great time to be alive with all this technical innovation. It's kind of exceptional. I mean, I feel really fortunate. So
absolutely, and the same with the cloud and the smart edge. I feel that with electricity it's the same. We always look at the big generators, but we also have to look at the decentralized generators. I mean, I have my house, and I don't want to brag about it, but I have 37 solar panels on my house in Seattle, where it always rains, and one would think, why would you have solar panels? But actually, Seattle is very good because solar doesn't work from heat. It works from clarity of the light.
That's right.
And so I produce 50% of my electricity needs through my solar panel, and that includes 2 cars and a heat pump. So I don't use hardly any gas, and 50% is done by myself. So if we get better programs, cheaper panels, and if everybody who can do it, who can afford it, it might not be price efficient, except for over 20 years. But when you think about, you want to have more electric cars for the better of the environment, or even better for, technical reasons, we also have to think about how can we generate more at home. Yeah, with solar panels, little wind generators, I don't know, whatever. I'm sure that we can invent a lot more. But I think it's a fascinating discussion, and and certainly we should talk more, perhaps when specifics or when you have, something to show for, what has been created. That would be a lot of fun.
That'd be great.
Thank you very much, Bob. We'll talk soon again, and good luck with all your endeavors.
Thanks, Thomas. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. So
thanks. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.